Hello, first grade researchers. First of all, happy last day of school. It has been a joy teaching you this year, and I wish you all the best luck in second grade. We have been doing some great researching this week. I hope that you've been forming some research questions and searching for the answers in books and our online databases. And here is the last lesson about research. And here it is. Our learning target today. By the end of today, I will be able to continue the research process by forming new questions and seeking answers. So the interesting thing about research, and we started to talk about this yesterday, is that once you start researching, you form new questions, and that takes you to new books to find more information. In fact, the word research, so the prefix re means again. So research means to search again or look again. And so that's the cool thing about research is once you find the answer to one of your questions, maybe you think of a new question. And that's really the heart of researching. So yesterday we started to think of some new questions because as we were reading our books, we got curious about some of those questions and some of the things we found out, and we wanted to learn more. Excuse me. So I'll share our questions and I'll show the new questions we started thinking about as we were finding our answers yesterday. Okay. So here are our questions. So we started to think about, we found that there are some kind of animals that live in, some worms that live in water. So we talked about what are some other types of worms and how are they different from earthworms. And the last thing we read taught us there's flatworms, ribbon worms, roundworms, and segmented worms. And we also found out that some of them live in water. And so we're wondering, how do some of these worms live in water? And I was also wondering about compost. You know, we are learning about how they're good for the soil, and I have my compost bins, but we haven't really learned a whole lot about how worms help with compost. So I was wondering if we could find some information about that too. So I've got some new questions, and now we're going to go on a search to see if we can find answers to these questions. So I did a little search already, and the first thing I found, I used Kid Info Bits. It was in our research folder. And when I typed in the word worm, and one of the options that came up was an ocean worm. Take a look at that. That's an ocean worm. The caption says, ocean worms like this one catch their food with special tentacles on their heads. So I'm guessing these must be the tentacles, and they use that to catch their food. Really interesting. We're still wondering how they breathe underwater. This doesn't really tell us the answer to that, but maybe we'll be able to find it someplace else. Now I also, doing some more search, I typed in the word marine worms, because marine is another word for like ocean, and I came across this. It's a pretty long article. It says, why should we care about marine worms? But what I learned, so this man, Christian Foucault, he is apparently like the top researcher about these marine worms, and he actually uses a scientific name for them. Polychaetes, I think is how you say it, polychaetes. And so I couldn't find from this article, I read it and couldn't find out how they breathe. Now this next step, you guys are able to do this research within the databases we have on Blackboard. But if you can't find the answer within Blackboard, if you get help from an adult, you might be able to try searching for some things using Google. But I want you to only do it if you have an adult with you who can help you. All right, now I did a search on Google, and what I came across was when I typed in marine worms, I found 14, this is from Smithsonian Magazine, 14 fun facts about marine bristle worms. And this is a pretty long article. It mentions Dr. Foucault, and we got some really cool pictures of these worms too. So let's take a look. Look, this is kind of like it says the dazzling diversity of Polychaete family tree. So here's all the different types of marine worms and how they relate to each other. And then we got a couple. Here's this one's called, what does it say? This one, it says it can live in really hot temperatures. Interesting, like volcanic water. And these ones are called Christmas tree worms. So these ones are living on some coral. Pretty crazy looking worms that live in the water. Bobbit worm and lionfish. That's a video if we wanted to watch that. This one's called an Alciopid bristle worm. See those bristles on it. This one is, let's see, Lepidopterus squamatus bristle worm. And it has a bioluminescent glow. That means it kind of glows in the dark. Some animals in the water that live really deep where it's so dark, they have their bodies able to glow. So here's what I can do. I'm going to teach you a skill. If you hold down the control button, so on your keyboard, it's in the bottom left corner, CTRL. If I hold that and press the letter F, it gives us a search bar, and I can look to see if it talks about how they breathe. This is a pretty long article, so I could type in B-R-E-A-T-H, breathe, and it shows me exactly where the word breathe is in the article. So let me see if this tells us how they breathe. So remember the Christmas tree worms that we saw? So here's the Christmas tree worms, and it says, let's see, I'll start here. Most of their bodies are hidden from view, however, as they build tube homes in holes burrowed in live coral. From these tubes, they extend feathery structures called radioles, which they use to both breathe and grab phytoplankton or other small particles for dinner. When in danger, they retract their feathery headgear and hunker down in the tubes until the threat passes. So it seems like they stick out this feathery stuff from the tubes, and that's how they're able to breathe and eat. Interesting. So we did learn a little bit about how they breathe. So I'll write that down in our notes. They use radioles, feathery structures. So let's see. How do some worms live in water? So I'll say the tree worms breathe through radioles. Interesting. Okay. Now, one other thing is I remember when we were on, let's see, in this World Book Kids article, and I remember seeing this diagram of different types of worms. So I can click on that, and it's going to tell me about some different types of worms as well. So I see a leech. I didn't know a leech is a type of worm. It's a type of segmented worm. So I can, let me bring my notes back up so that we can see. So other types of worms. So we learned a leech is a segmented worm. Let's see, a hookworm is a type of roundworm. And a bootlace worm is a type of ribbon worm. I wonder why it's called a ribbon worm. Maybe because it's so long. I'd have to research that too. Tapeworm is a flatworm. And planarian is a type of flatworm. So I see the tapeworm and the planarian are both types of flatworms. I wonder what makes something a flatworm, because they look very different from each other, but they're the same type of worm. So I need to do more research on that too. So even as I'm finding out more information, I form more and more questions about what I want to research. So that's what I want you to try as well. Maybe you picked a topic and you've been researching your topic and you found some answers to your questions, I hope. And as you find answers to some questions, I hope you're asking new questions and writing them down. And so the more we research, the more questions we form and the more research we can do. And the more you research, the more that you learn. And so I hope that you guys become excellent researchers and continue asking those questions and looking in all different places to find those answers. I hope that you guys have an excellent summer, and I hope to see you next year. I hope you stop by and say hi and grab this year. Bye.